So, hello everybody and welcome. Yes, welcome back here about BSN Network. Can you get back here, BSN Network? This is the BSN Network podcast here today. It is Thursday, June 3rd. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far and had a good rest of their day yesterday. It is in fact Thursday, June 3rd here today. We are now getting closer and closer. It's only 2 days away from the start of the second round for the Brooklyn Nets versus the Milwaukee Bucks. Should be a very exciting and very fun series. I'm ready for it. Hopefully you are as well. We will be covering it all on the podcast throughout the series, and then tomorrow I'll give you my Game 1 pick. And we'll be, recapping the games and going all through it throughout the series. And hopefully we'll be talking about the Brooklyn Nets up until they win the championship. That's obviously the hope, and that's the goal, and that's the expectation, is for this Brooklyn Nets team to take home a championship, and this Brooklyn Nets team at the end of the year to be hoisting up the trophy. And as I always say, this team should, our expectation is to end the year with a parade. That's the expectation. That's the goal. That's the hope. And, we won first round. We got the job done there. We took care of the first round. Now we get to the second round. And like I said, I'm not even going to say anything else. We got to focus on our matchup here. We got to take it game by game. We got to focus on Game 1, Saturday night, an opportunity to jump out onto an early lead, an opportunity to get a good start against the Bucks. Home court advantage. You're going to be at Barclays. I think it's going to be a good series, which home court advantage is going to be big in a close series. So, you got to watch out. And, it's going to be a good series. I'm excited. I'm pumped up for it. So, we're only 2 days away from that. And Yankees got another win yesterday. Out of the middle of nowhere, are we actually seeing the New York Yankees win baseball games? Out of the middle of nowhere, the New York Yankees are winning games. Out of the middle of nowhere, the New York Yankees are finally starting to play some, solid baseball. And obviously, like I said, it's only 2 games, so you gotta, calm down a little bit, and you can't get too ahead of yourselves. But, obviously, the New York Yankees right now are playing very good, and they're looking good, and they're playing well. And that's all I gotta say, because I'm proud of it. I'm happy about it. You lost Game 1 against the Rays. You look terrible doing it. Then you win on Tuesday. You win yesterday. You gotta hope that you gotta hope that you can find a way to win today. And then you got 3 games left at the homestand against Boston, and that starts tomorrow, and that's Friday, and that's a big series because that series, it's gonna start tomorrow. And it's going to go into Sunday. And that series is huge. You got the Boston Red Sox coming into town, who is always a big series, let alone when the Boston Red Sox are ahead of you in the division. And it's always a big series rivalry-wise. It's one of the biggest rivals in sports. It's one of the biggest rivalries in sports. We hate the Red Sox, and the Red Sox hate the Yankees. So there's hatred for both sides. And that series will be getting underway very shortly. Tomorrow, very excited about that series. So much great sports on this weekend. You got Yankees, Red Sox. You got Nets starting up the second round. You got the Islanders in their first round still. They return home, so you get some hockey back at the Nassau Coliseum. Just some great sports coming up this weekend. And obviously, the Knicks lost last night. They have been eliminated from the playoffs. I'll get to that later on in the show. The Yankees play today. Islanders play today. Game 3 of that series. They will head back home. I'm sure the Nassau Coliseum is going to be rocking. I'll probably watch that game tonight. I will watch that game tonight as the Yankees have a day game, so there won't be much on. And obviously the Nets are off as well, so I'm sure I'll probably be tuning into that Islanders game tonight. Very excited for that game. You got the Islanders tonight. You got the Yankees on. Knicks obviously are done for the season. I'm going to talk about them today. They got eliminated. I'll talk about them today. And then that'll kind of be it for them a little bit here. I'll give you updates throughout the regular season. But other than that, obviously, the daily Knicks talk is pretty much done as they've been eliminated. Like I mentioned, Nets wait till Saturday. So good amount of New York sports on today. Good amount of sports on today just in general. You got the Lightning and Islanders play today, and that should be good. Very excited about that Lightning series. Lightning are up right now 2-0 in the series, and now they head home. So it's only going to get better there. And I mentioned it. I said this Lightning team's coming into the playoffs a little under the radar. Everyone's talking about the Hurricanes. They were talking about the Maple Leafs. Everyone talking about, the Avalanche and stuff. And the Avalanche had a great performance last night. They're up 2-0. They look like they might be on their way to another sweep. But I'm telling you what, this Lightning team, the way they're playing, I think they're going to get to the Stanley Cup. Now, are they going to beat the Avalanche? The Avalanche right now haven't lost. So right now, the Avalanche are unbeatable in the playoffs. They're 6-0 right now. You can't say they're beatable yet because they haven't lost in the playoffs. Once they lose, then you can say, okay, well, they're a beatable team. It's just extremely hard. So, Islanders play today. Yankees on today. So those should be good games. And then the Mets also play today. They open up a series against the San Diego Padres. And like I mentioned, Knicks are done for the season. And the Nets will wait until Saturday to get up their second round, to start up their second round series. So let's get into the topics for today. The Nhl Draft Lottery happened last night, and the Buffalo Sabres have gotten the first overall pick in the Nhl Draft Lottery, and the first top 15 picks were selected. The Rangers got number 15, the Devils got number 4, I believe, and the Sabres got number 1. I believe I can name the top 6. It goes the Sabres, the Kraken, the Ducks, the Devils, the Blue Jackets, and then the Red Wings. And I know the Stars, I believe, have the 14th pick. I believe the Stars have the 14th pick. I believe the Flyers have the 12th pick, and I think the Rangers have the 15th. And other than that, I'll read it to you in a little bit here. That's what I remember. So I remember about 8 to 9 out of the 15. So a lotteries last night. We're going to get into it. I know yesterday I did promise talking about Coach K and talking about the Jets. I will probably get to Coach K tomorrow, more than likely, unless if any other news comes out, and I will get to the Jets. I was thinking about talking about Coach K today, but I figured with the Jets, I kind of just figured, let's put that back to Friday, kind of just, a week update, push it back to Friday, OTAs, all that stuff, talk about all that stuff on Friday. Get you a little preview to mandatory minicamp that happens next week. Kind of that kind of thing. And I just decided to talk about it tomorrow. Coach K, I'll get to. I'll probably talk about him tomorrow as well. That's a big story as well. But as long as there's no other breaking news, I will get to Coach K. That's big. That's big for college basketball, big for sports. Today I wanted to get into the NHL Draft Lottery results. To be honest, I really didn't think about talking about this. And then it happened, and I kind of was like, you know what? I feel like this is good, so I'm going to talk about it. And then my next topic here was the Knicks get eliminated. So the New York Knicks have obviously gotten eliminated, and they lost last night. They lose the series in 5 games. I'm going to talk about the series, talk about, kind of just, the offseason ahead, because they've definitely got some questions. Every team going to the offseason is going to have questions, but the Knicks definitely do have some questions. And it's not bad questions. It's actually, in a way, I shouldn't even say it's a good problem to have. But the Knicks are gonna have to go out. They're gonna have to get, they might go out and try to look for a big name. They might go out and try to strike a trade. There's a big question around whether Julius Randle should sign an extension or not. So there's a lot around the Knicks. They obviously lost last night. Ended the season on obviously a low note. Ended the season on a terrible note, getting crushed 3 straight games in a row, losing in 5 games, not showing up in the 5th game of the series. And the Knicks did have a very good year. And no one, I don't think, really expected them to get to the playoffs. And if you did, I don't think anyone expected them to get as a 4 seed. If you did, I think you have a better chance of winning the lottery than getting that prediction right. You did get it right, though. So I wanted to get into their season. Obviously, really going to hone in on the playoffs in the offseason because the season's completely in the rear view. The Knicks obviously losing last night. As a Knicks fan, if you're a Knicks fan, I'm not a Knicks fan, but if you're a Knicks fan, you kind of just got to zone out of that, forget about that series, and, get focused and, look ahead to, I think, what should probably be a pretty active offseason with, Leon Rose and Tom Thibodeau and the Knicks finally actually being, relevant again in the NBA. This was a team for the past 8 years now that have been the laughingstock of the league. So you might be able to draw someone in there. And then we'll get up to the New York Sports Update, finish it all off, put the cherry on top with the New York Sports Update. And, Yankees, Mets. Mets start up a 3-game set against, not 3, I believe it, I don't know if it's 3 or 4, but they start up a set against the Padres. Yankees play today. Nets wait till Saturday. Knicks obviously eliminated. Islanders play game 3 of that series, their first game home of the series. So I'm sure Nassau Coliseum will be rocking. and I'm sure the Islanders fans and the Islanders players will feed off of the energy, feed off of each other, and we'll see if they can get a win. So with all that being said, this is the BSN podcast, and let's get right into it. So the 2021 NHL Draft Lottery, Sabres land number 1 overall pick, full selection order. So I will read you the full selection in a little bit here, but yes, you are hearing it right. The Buffalo Sabres, who this season were the laughingstock of the league, were a terrible team, had an awful year, were really any bad thing you could say. They were not good. They did not have a good year. They were not even close to having a good year. They have now officially gotten the number 1 overall pick. Obviously, as we all know, the Buffalo Sabres were, in fact, the laughingstock of the league. And, obviously how the draft lottery works is you get the little ping pong balls into the machine, and it will shoot up, and whatever ball comes up, whatever ping pong ball comes up, that's who got the first overall pick. So yesterday we found out the top 15 overall picks. Obviously the playoffs will dictate the rest of the picks. Will decide whether whoever gets the final pick. Now the last pick of the draft usually is the team that wins the Stanley Cup, and obviously the team that needs it most will get the number 1 overall pick. So the Buffalo Sabres get the number 1 overall pick, and more than likely they will be selecting defenseman out of Michigan, Owen Power, who's out of Michigan. Obviously played there, a really good defenseman, really quick on the speed, good puck handler, good defenseman, just overall good player, a young stud. More than likely they will take him. Now there are some other options, there are still some other things the Sabres can do, but he's the projected number 1 overall pick. It's not as obvious as I would say some in the past. You might make an argument that another player should go. It's not as obvious as like last year, Alexi Lafreniere being the number 1 overall pick. Obviously, Owen Power more than likely will be the number 1 overall pick, and more than likely will be the Buffalo Sabres sport choice. But the Sabres now, all of a sudden, it really gets interesting with how their off season's going to go, because the Sabres, it's going to have to all start off with the head coach and who they pick as the head coach, whether that's going to be back Dan Granato, who obviously was the interim. He came in for Ralph Kruger, who got fired in the middle of the season. Do you go with Dan Granato, who actually had the team play some competitive hockey? Did they still lose? Did they still finish last in the East Division? Yes, but that's because they dug themselves in a deeper hole earlier in the year. And he was able to, get some guys in there, and was able to get some guys, some pretty good players in there, and, get some guys some opportunities, and get some of the young guys playing time. Obviously, without your star player, Jack Eichel, they were really working with absolutely nothing, and they just made the trade for Taylor Hall. Dan Granato did a good job, but the Buffalo Sabres, obviously getting the number 1 overall pick is great and all, but it all is going to depend on who they hire as their next head coach. And like I mentioned, is that going to be bringing back Dan Granato? And if there is any chance that Dan Granato is the head coach, he made a pretty good debut, helping this team get to, some competitive hockey. They were not getting blown out. They were not looking lost. They were playing some decent hockey. Yes, they still finished in the last in the division, but you also got to realize they were working with a roster that had absolutely nobody on it, and they already dug themselves into such a deep hole earlier in the year. What did you really expect out of the Buffalo Sabres when Dan Granato took over? What did you expect? Them to make a deep playoff run? What did you expect, right? So Dan Granato actually coached well. But yes, the Sabres getting the first pick is great. But it's all going to depend on whether or not they make the right choice at head coach. And what do they do in free agency? Now, this pick for the Buffalo Sabres is big, because this is probably going to be the guy. And like I mentioned, I don't know if Jack Eichel is going to be with the Sabres next season. I'm not a member of the Sabres. I always say this. I sit here and I will talk about sports. I will predict things. I will think things out. I'm not a member of the Sabres. So I have no clue what the Buffalo Sabres plan is when it comes to Jack Eichel's future. But if they do decide to trade him, let's just say they decide to trade him, this number 1 overall pick, assuming it's going to be Owen Power out of Michigan, the defenseman, assuming it's going to be him because he's projected to be the first overall pick. And are the Sabres a crazy needed defenseman team? No, it's not a crazy need, but if you're going to get the best guy in the draft, you're going to get the best talent guy in the draft, might as well go out there, take advantage of it, and draft a defenseman. Now, could they go center? Could they go wing? And they ain't going to go goalie, I can guarantee you that. Could they go wing? Could they go center? Could they go defenseman? I would probably say they go Owen Power. But it's going to be big, because what they decide to do with Jack Eichel is going to decide on really their pick. Because if they decide to trade Jack Eichel, the number 1 overall pick, more than likely going to be Owen Power. He's going to now be the cornerstone of the franchise. He's now going to be the guy you're going to need to build around. He's going to be the guy that you're going to need to develop. The fan base is going to have to rally around him. You're going to hope that he is the next face of the franchise. Because I think we can all agree right now Jack Eichel is probably the face of the Buffalo Sabres franchise if there had to be one. Now, is he the most popular player in the NHL? No, but he's probably the face of the franchise for the Sabres. So if they do decide to move on from Eichel, this number 1 overall pick in Owen Power is going to have to be kind of the cornerstone. He's going to have to turn into the face of the franchise. He's going to have to be this guy that they can rely on, that they can build around, and they can trust to be with the team for multiple years to come. And that's obviously one of the big things. And that's where the Sabres got to get this pick right. The Sabres right now are in a very iffy situation. And I think Owen Power would be a good pick. I do. I think he's going to be a solid player. I'm going to be honest, I don't know much about him. Michigan hockey's not on TV that much. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say that I've seen every game he's played. I've seen highlights of him. I do like to look over prospects in all sports, NBA, NHL, MLB, and NFL. Especially in the NHL, NBA, and NFL, because those guys usually go straight to the league. MLB, it's a little different, but I mean, even Jack Leiter, I've seen him play a couple times. He's the top prospect coming out. I've seen him a couple times. I've been looking at him, looking at his numbers. He's a really good player. I do like to scout draft guys, so am I going to lie to you and say I've seen every game Owen Power's played? No, but what I've seen, you look at the numbers, what I've read, and going into the podcast, I've got to have some knowledge on him. He's a solid player. He'd be a solid addition. But the Sabres are in a little bit of an interesting situation because you got to make a decision. You got to make a decision on what you want to do with Jack Eichel. That's your first big decision. Do you want to move on from Jack Eichel? And if they decide to do that, then great. You can move on from him. Good for him. You start fresh with your first overall pick, who would be your next guy. Now, that's big. Because if you decide to move on from Jack Eichel, then this pick means that much more. And this pick for the Buffalo Sabres might be a big decider on how the next 5-6 years of this franchise plays out. Because if they get this pick wrong, then the next 5 years, it ain't going to be good. Because you're not going to have a true young, talented guy to build around. If they pick, let's just say they pick Owen Power, and let's just say he's a bust. Let's say he does nothing. 3 years into his career, the Sabres are still the laughingstock of the league, and he's not doing anything. I think he will do well in the league. I do. I personally do. From looking at his highlights and looking at the numbers and looking at what he can do on the ice, I do think that. But let's just say you get this pick wrong, that could really hurt your franchise for the next couple years. Because to be honest, the Sabres are in a very odd situation. They've got a very good player in Jack Eichel, but who knows if he's even going to be on the team next year. He's expressed frustrations. The Sabres haven't expressed frustrations about Eichel, but the Sabres too, they might be leaning towards, you know what? We could get a whole lot more draft capital. We could get a whole lot more young talent to give away Eichel and just completely start fresh. Bring in new faces, bring in new coaches, completely blow up the roster and start over. That's what the Sabres might be thinking. They might be. Now, they could also be thinking, you know what? Let's do it again. Let's have Eichel come back. Let's draft, the star player at the first overall pick, whoever that is. More than likely, it's going to be Owen Power, and start fresh and say, hey, we'll try it again. If we don't do well this year, if Eichel's not happy, if he gets injured again, if he's not performing well, then you go ahead and say, you know what, we got to get rid of him. They could be thinking multiple different things. But two big key deciders, key factors of how the Buffalo Sabres their next couple years of this franchise will play out is this pick, because this is a big opportunity. You're getting the first overall pick. In any sport, the first overall pick is a great opportunity to get the next big-time player for your franchise. Whatever sport that is in, getting the first overall pick is a great thing. Now, that means that you stunk the year before that, but still, if you get what I'm saying, it is still great to get the first overall pick, especially if you're a team like the Sabres that doesn't have much talent on the roster and could use another young player, could use a guy that's, going to be able to at least try to make this roster a little bit better. Now, does this automatically mean that the Sabres are going to go be buyers at the deadline? No, they're not. Be buyers in the offseason? No, they're not. They're not going to be buyers. They're going to be sellers. it really is big. What they do at the head coach and what they do with this first overall pick is going to be big factors on how this franchise, lays itself out for the next couple of years. If they get this pick wrong, and let's just say they hire the wrong coach, your franchise went from already being in a bad situation to being literally digging yourself, all the way down the bedrock. All right, you're going to be in a terrible situation then. So, Sabres front office, Sabres organization really need to put a lot of thought into this pick, and they need to put a lot of thought into the coach. Because those two key factors are going to be huge deciders on what the Sabres do moving on. And hey, if the Sabres get the right coach and Eichel likes him, then boom, Eichel might come back. Now, if he's struggling and the Sabres stink again, you got to obviously hope you get some improvement. I don't think the Sabres can be as bad as they were last season. I don't. Now, they only played 56 games, so more than likely they're only going to get more wins. So if you're really going off of wins, they're probably going to get more wins because there's a lot more games next season. Obviously, this season, they played a whole lot less games. So an opportunity here, they played, 26 less games? So an opportunity here to have 26 more games. And am I saying now, and Sabres fans should agree with this, just because you get the number one overall pick doesn't mean you're going to be a great team next season. But this is hopefully the start of a successful rebuild in the near future. And it all starts with the first overall pick and the head coach that you hire. And I'm saying it first. I'm a Rangers fan. I know what it's like. The Rangers got the first overall pick last season. Alexis Lafreniere started the season off a little slow, but boy, did he finish it on a high note. He had a solid year. He had a very good first season. And, now he gets an opportunity next season with a full off season of work in the NHL. Gets an opportunity next year in an 82-game slate. We'll see what he's all about. I would say this season he did well for a rookie. And obviously now, I've said it many times, this Rangers is going to decide a whole lot on what they do at the head coach position and what they do in the offseason in terms of signings and trades is big. So, Sabres, yes, they win the draft lottery, but this has got to be the start of a whole lot more building to come. This is kind of just the groundwork here. Winning the draft lottery last night was kind of just the groundwork for the Buffalo Sabres. They still, they're just laying the base. Now they got to start to build up a little bit, and then once you finish off the top, I always say it's like a house. You can't build a house from the roof down. You got to start with a solid base. And this draft lottery win last night is hopefully the start of a solid base, and you could start to slowly and little by little build up. This thing's not going to be built overnight. You're not going to have a Stanley Cup contending team overnight, unless if you go out and trade everything away for 3 superstars and automatically you're the betting odds favorite. But the Sabres will slowly now have to build. Hopefully they get the coach right, and then your draft picks well, and things start to go in the right way. And it might sound like I'm saying everything has to go perfect. No, it doesn't. Coach is big. If you get the coach right, he'll be there. If you get the coach right, then I would assume the player that you're going to draft is going to be successful. Because that means he's going to go into the right system, go into the right plan, develop the right way, all that stuff. So the 2021 NHL Draft Lottery, Sabres land number one overall pick, full selection order. Obviously, the Rangers landed the 15th. I could very well see them trading it. And the reason I say that is because, let's just say we do go after Eichel. That could be a golden opportunity to trade that pick. Because that leaves the Sabres with the first overall pick and the 15th, plus all the other picks the Sabres have for this season and, the future seasons. The Buffalo Sabres have won the NHL's 2021 Draft Lottery and will have the opportunity to pick number one overall when the entry draft rolls around this summer. It's the first time Buffalo has picked number one since taking Rasmus Dahlin in 2018, which I got to admit has so far not worked out in their favor. Now, has Dahlin been terrible? No. He showed some flashes last season. He had some consistent games down the stretch, but he's not been number one overall pick good. So, I don't know if you want to call him a bust yet, but you do as you want. I'm not a Sabre fan. Sabres fans, you might call him a bust. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, be mean, be negative, but he has not been what the Sabres expect him to be and what they want him to be, to say the very least. He has not been good. I'll leave it at that. Last season, he showed some little bit of consistency down the stretch where he played some good games. Not first overall pick good, but at least average games. But you just got to hope that the pick you made, more than likely Owen Power, is the right move. All right, so here's a look at the top half of the draft board following Wednesday's drawing. So the 2021 NHL Draft Lottery results. So I'm going to read them right now for you. So it's the Buffalo Sabres, number 1 overall pick. Number 2 pick will be the Seattle Kraken, who's the expansion team. So they will get a nice early draft pick to try to build a foundation there. Then they'll also have the expansion draft. So they will get to pick, I believe 1 player from each team. And 1 player from each team has to make, I think, 1 or 2 players eligible for the expansion draft. So that's different story, different day. That's you could talk about that on and on and on. Then the number 3 overall pick will be the Anaheim Ducks. Number 4 will be the New Jersey Devils. Number 5 will be the Columbus Blue Jackets. Then number 6, Detroit Red Wings. Number 7, San Jose Sharks. 8th pick will be the Los Angeles Kings. 9th pick, Vancouver Canucks. 10th pick, Ottawa Senators. 11th pick, Chicago Blackhawks. 12th pick, Calgary Flames. And number 13th pick will be the Philadelphia Flyers. Number 14th pick will be the Dallas Stars. And the number 15th pick will be the New York Rangers. The Buffalo Sabres entered Wednesday with the best odds. So they did have the best odds. With the best odds of winning the lottery at 16.6%, with the Anaheim Ducks right behind them at 12.1% per NHLs.com, Mike G. Morale. Both the New Jersey Devils in the expansion, Seattle Kraken, who are drafting for the first time, held a 10.3% chance of winning. Seattle could drop now lower than the 5th overall pick, regardless of how the lottery played out. Could drop no lower than 5th overall pick, regardless of how the lottery played out. The leagues altered this year's lottery process by better protect teams with worse records from falling further in the draft order. Here's how the revised process looks per Morale. The NHL announced March 23rd that 2 drawings will be held to determine the top 2 picks in the draft since 2016. The first 3 selections had been determined by the lottery. The change was made to reduce the likelihood of a team with the worst record dropping in the draft order. That means the Sabres will pick no worse than number 3 overall in the 2021 NFL in the draft. So obviously, the Sabres, the worst they could have had was a 3rd overall pick, which is not bad. That's not bad, getting a 3rd overall pick. The Arizona Coyotes were still included in the drawing despite forfeiting their first-round pick following the NHL investigation into violations of the league's combine testing policy in 2019-2020. Had the Coyotes won the lottery, a redrawing would have occurred. The 2021 NHL Draft should prove a fascinating few days for NHL clubs with no clear number 1 prospect establishing themselves yet. Obviously, like I mentioned, Owen Power is probably the projected guy, but still, I said it early on the podcast, it's not as obvious as last season, and to be honest, it's not as obvious as some drafts in the past, with knowing who you're going to draft. Defenseman Owen Power, left wing William Eklund, and center Mason McTavish each have strong case to be taken with the number 1 pick, but without a consensus star on the board, Buffalo could look to trade down. I don't really think they trade down. Everyone always says that option. I think the Sabres are going to take a young guy, and they're gonna move on with it. And maybe if they trade Eichel, they'll get more picks. I don't think they trade down. Everyone always says that. Now maybe it happens, but everyone always says, "Oh, what's the possibility of trading down or trading the picks?" Sometimes people just like to start things. I don't think they're going to trade down. Now like I mentioned, are they in need of a crazy good defenseman? Not really. But, let's just say you do decide to trade Eichel, well, you're going to need a center. And that's going to be big shoes to fill. That could be an opportunity to pick someone up there. The first round of this draft class is a strong class, which includes a blend of elite forwards and defensemen. But the strength of this year's draft is likely with defense. Director of NHL Central Scouting Dan Marr told Morale, while this position often requires significant development time and experience, this class has a talented mix of many types of defensemen available, which will give many NHL clubs an opportunity to stock up at this position. So, maybe if the Sabres say, hey, we realize there's a lot of defensemen, let's go center first overall, and then maybe you go ahead and say, let's take a defenseman later if there's a lot of defensemen. And like I said, The Rangers pick number 15 overall. To be honest, I could actually see this pick going where I could see the Rangers maybe trading this pick, especially with Chris Drury's kind of plan. I could see his plan going out and making a big move for a big-name player, and I would imagine that number 15 overall pick is going to have to be involved in there. I could also see us maybe we trade up and try to get, another player. The Rangers have, defense has been good, but maybe, if we see a guy on the board that's physical, aggressive, a little bit of a goon in him, maybe the Rangers build through that way. But all I know is the Sabres have the first overall. That's not all I know, but the Sabres have the first overall pick. Are they going to trade down? I don't really think so. I mean, the Sabres could use the best guy available. I mean, that's how bad their roster is. And like I said, not to be negative, but it's the truth. I mean, look at their record. Look at the way they played this season. They don't got much talent. Now, they do got some guys here and there. Eichel's in a weird situation because you could say, oh, we have Eichel, but it's like he might get traded. So it's like, do you want to count Eichel? I mean, right, Eichel's on the roster, so I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, Eichel's getting traded. But, you might say, oh, we have Eichel and we have all this guy, and what if Eichel does this? Well, Eichel might not be on the team next season. Am I saying he's going to get traded? No, I'm just saying that's a real possibility. I mean, there's a real possibility Eichel is getting traded. Like I said, I'm not going to start anything. I don't want to predict. I'm just saying. So, what do they do? That is a question that's going to need to be asked by the Sabres. And, who they pick, that's another big question as well. I hope that they take, not that I hope, but, obviously Sabres fans, I'm sure hope they take, the main guy. The guy that they believe is best for the job. So, we'll see how it all plays out. But definitely a pretty big night there for the Buffalo Sabres. And I'm sure the fans are pumped. I'm sure, they're all pumped. I'm sure they're all hyped because the Buffalo Sabres are, getting the first overall pick. And I'm sure the fans are hyped up. And I'm sure they are. They should be. They should be, excited about it. Because, you're getting the number one overall pick. Now, as a Sabre fan, if you're a Sabre fan, is there much to be excited about now? Not really. But at least you could say, okay, our future looks kind of in shape. We get the number one overall pick, and hopefully we get the coach right. You can kind of move on from there. All right, but anyway, that's what I got for the NHL Draft Lottery. Coming up next here, we're going to get into the New York Knicks. They got eliminated last night by the Atlanta Hawks in 5 games. Came out flat, looked flat most of the series. And the New York Knicks cannot get the job done. They had a very successful season. They got into the 4 seed. But now questions have to be asked in the regular season and or in the offseason. And we'll hopefully find the answers as the offseason goes around. And I will give you some predictions for what the Knicks should and might do throughout the offseason. Coming up next. Alrighty. So obviously, the New York Knicks are obviously got eliminated last night. They lost in the series in 5 games. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be blatant with it. They did not play well. They did not look good all series. I mean, I could say that the Knicks did not look like the New York Knicks all series. I mean, even in the game they won, it was still iffy, shaky defense, missing some key shots. Randle wasn't on his game. Even the one game they won, obviously you might say that might be the only positive of the series, but to be honest, even that game, that still did not look like the New York Knicks. Yes, they squeaked out a win, 101-92, but still, that just did not seem like the New York Knicks in that game. And obviously, the New York Knicks this season, to put it as blatant as can possibly be this series, and I listened to, all radio shows and, broadcasts, stuff like that. 2 Knicks fans, they put it as blatant as can be. The Knicks were terrible this series. I mean, there's no other way of saying it. And I'm not saying it just because the Knicks fans would agree with me. The Knicks were not good this series. They were terrible. They played awful. And it's obvious. And I'm not just saying this because it's the Knicks, and this is why I'm kind of debating on, how much I should say, because the Knicks were terrible. Julius Randle was not good at all. He was awful. RJ Barrett did not have a good series. So, I know I'm not a Knicks fan. And I'm not just saying it's because it's the New York Knicks. But the Knicks did not play well this series, and we can all agree on that. I mean, if you think the Knicks played well and they got smoked 3 straight games and lost in 5, then I don't know what playing bad is. Because the Knicks did not play well this series. And like I said, it was their first playoff series. This was a team that we all knew going into the year and throughout the season when we were all surprised that they were doing so well. This was a team that was, as some people say, scotch taped together. It was a mix of some young guys with some old guys with a new coaching staff, a whole lot of moving parts, and yet they still were able to get to the 4 seed and still were able to make the playoffs. And yes, the playoffs did not go as well as they did, but you look back on the whole season and you try to take some positives from it, and the regular season was amazing. You got to the playoffs, they looked flat, they were not good, they did not do well. Now, the New York Knicks seem to have always a lot of questions in the offseason. Now, actually, as funny as it may sound, a lot of the questions have been bad questions, though. They've been, what's the future of the coach? Are we going to trade this guy? Or, that's not a really bad question. But they've all been bad questions. They've been, fire James Dolan should sell the team. Or, you think, that this guy's going to leave and stuff like that. But this year, it's actually some positive questions. Do the Knicks no longer, it seems like every season with the Knicks since 2012, the head coach has been involved in the offseason conversations. What's the future of the head coach? Should we fire the head coach? This year, obviously, the job that Tom Thibodeau done, which was outstanding, nothing short of excellent. He was outstanding this season. There's no other way of putting it. And obviously, a guy like Tom Thibodeau, who took this team, like I mentioned, with almost the same roster they had last season when they were awful in the laughingstock of the league and obviously didn't even qualify for the bubble. You look at it and you got to look at it and say, hey, Tom Thibodeau took this team. Guys like R.J. Barrett, Nerlens Noel, Taj Gibson, Derrick Rose, Julius Randle. He took this team, changed some of the rotations, mix it up, kind of put his own little twist on things, and this team got to a 4 seed. So this offseason, one of the questions is not the head coach. Actually, you feel confident about the head coach moving forward. That's how good of a season Tom Thibodeau had this year as the coach. As a Knicks fan, you got to feel pretty gosh darn confident what he's going to do in the future with this team. And if you can try to get your hands on a big-time free agent and, build around this team, it will only help more, and Thibodeau will only be able to help this team even more. Now, that's one of the big questions. And I do feel like this is a question with the Knicks almost every offseason. Are we going to go out and sign a big-name player? And that's been one thing with the Knicks that is always said every year, and everyone always says, the Knicks are going to get this guy, and they're going to get this guy, and everyone thought that KD and Kyrie were going to go to the Knicks, and they were going to get Zion Williamson, and they were going to create this super team, and sure enough, that never happened. Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and then obviously James Harden got traded there this offseason, all decided to go to the Knicks, or the Nets, rather, not the Knicks. I messed that up. The Nets. And the Knicks were obviously left with the roster that they got now. Now, Knicks fans, hindsight 2020, say that they like their roster they got now, but I'm sure if they could get Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden, I'm sure they would. That's besides the point, though. That's besides the point. I don't want to get into that. But it's the truth. Are the Knicks going to go out this offseason and go and sign a big-name free agent? That's one of the questions they got. Are they going to make a trade? Are they going to go out and, make a trade, maybe send a big package over to a team for another big package? Now, that's the one issue with the Knicks here is, what are you going to do with some of the kind of talent you got on the roster? Like, what are you going to do with Derrick Rose? Are you going to keep him? Or is he going to kind of just, be let go? What are you going to do there? Another big question with Julius Randle and this Knicks team is, are you going to extend Julius Randle? Because obviously a guy who last season was terrible, did not have a good year, comes out this year, and he came out very strong. He came out in great shape, and he had a great season. He had a career year. He actually was getting national attention from NBA fans across the globe. And obviously, as well, he won Most Improved Player. So are you going to pay him? Now, he had an awful playoffs, and yes, that's the lasting impact, but if you look at the big picture, he had an excellent season. The playoffs were not good, but the season was. So that's another big question that's got to be asked. And to be honest, the history tells us that the Knicks aren't going to go out and get a big free agent. Because every year they say that, and they never do. Now, have the Knicks And I don't know how to word this, because I guess you could say, playing for one of the bigger markets is never, is always sometimes brings on great challenges. Playing in New York in general is going to bring on its good things and its bad things. Dealing with the media is not always a fun thing. I always mention this. If you're playing well, you're going to be on top. It's going to feel like you're on top of the world. But if you're playing bad, you might not want to show yourself in public if you're playing bad as in New York sports. And that's the truth. And I will always say that about New York sports. And I'm a New York sports fan, and I'm like this. I will admit this. I'm very hard on my teams. I always say this. I am. I'm very hard on my teams. I'm very, if they're not doing well, you'll hear about it. You'll hear about it. If a player's not doing well, you'll hear about it. And that's how it is with New York sports. That's how it is with the media. If a player's doing well, it's going to feel like you're on top of the world. If you're not doing well, you're going to feel like you're not going to want to show your face in public. And that's the one thing. And like I said, I don't know how I want to word this, but have the Knicks kind of turn back into a little bit of a respectable franchise again. They got all the money. They're the third, richest franchise, I think, in American sports. Only behind the Cowboys? Or is it all sports? I don't know. Only behind the Cowboys and the Yankees, I know. Obviously, is this team kind of back to a respectability level? Where since they made the playoffs in 2012, 2013, whenever they made the playoffs, since the last time they made the playoffs, they've been the laughingstock of the league. And everyone's, making fun of the Knicks, and the Knicks stink, and they got this and that, and you got all these celebrities like Spike Lee, getting mad and leaving the games and all that stuff, and they've been an embarrassment to not only New York sports, but throughout the NBA, to sports in general. They've been an eyesore, and now all of a sudden you have a good year this year. All of a sudden, does the Knicks now all of a sudden turn into maybe a little bit of more of a, you got Thibodeau. He's a well-respected coach around the league. The players on this roster respect him a lot. Does this all of a sudden turn into a situation where maybe you start to drag maybe some of the bigger free agents out there, maybe go ahead and say, you know what? Let's test it. Let's try it. Let's see. Let's actually go to the Knicks, and let's see what we can do. Or do the Knicks got to strike a trade to bring a guy over? That's another big question. And like I said, that's all up to Leon Rose in the front office, and I'm sure Thibodeau and all them will have some saying on it. But how much money do the Knicks want to spend? And they got some money. The money that they got. They're expected to have an active offseason, and I'm not denying that. But are they going to have an active offseason of grabbing some good players? Or are they going to have an active offseason of grabbing all these all-stars, these superstars, and bringing them in? That's going to be a big question. Because you also got to realize, and the Knicks got to play this thing out. And like I said, I'm not acting like the Knicks are stupid. They know this. But if you're going to bring in these big-name guys, they're going to have some big contracts to come with it. And, Julius Randle's also going to want money. So you're going to have to make some decisions there. That's not right now. That's down the road. That would probably be next offseason. You'd have to really make a big decision on Julius Randle. But I don't really know if Julius Randle's that type. Is Julius Randle this season going to push to get a contract done? I don't know. We'll find out. If this season he's pushing to get a deal done, or maybe he plays it again. Now, he had a very good playoff, but I mixed it up. He had a very good regular season. He was awful in the playoffs. So, do the Knicks go ahead and say, you know what, let's give him the money anyway? Or do they say, I want to see another season out of him? What do they do? That's a question. Now, here's an example. Kawhi Leonard. He's going to be a free agent. Especially depending on how the Clippers do, with this series, if they lose this series, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George might both be gone. Kawhi's going to be out there. Is Kawhi going to want to come to the Knicks? That's a big question. But, is Kawhi going to want to come to the Knicks? That's a question that's going to have to be asked and, answered. Could he be a guy that the Knicks go all out on? Are the Knicks going to go all out on a free agent? I will tell you this. The Knicks' point guard situation right now is very questionable. They need a guard. They need a point guard. You got to hope that Emmanuel quickly gets better, and maybe that saves you some money and you build through that. But, the Knicks have a glaring issue at point guard. Do you go out and get a point guard? There's a lot of questions this offseason with the New York Knicks, and especially after a successful year, you got to hope that maybe some of those questions are answered a little bit easier. But it's big. And maybe the top free agent might want to come here and say, I want to play here. Are you going to go after Lonzo Ball? There's so many different options. There's so many different questions. The Knicks got to take this step by step. And if I'm the Knicks, I don't overpay for someone. I wouldn't. Because the Knicks have a solid foundation where they're at. They do. They have a solid foundation. And this offseason is going to start to where they build up. And they build up and build up and build up. And obviously, once you get to the top, that's when you're technically a contender for whatever league you're in. World Series, Finals, Super Bowl, or Stanley Cup. Whatever sport you're in. I'm not saying the Knicks are there yet, but they finally got the foundation. Now they can start to build up. Build up, build up, build up. And eventually they'll get there. And they could get there with one signing. If they sign Kawhi Leonard, I would assume you got to automatically consider them a contender. If they go out and sign two big-name guys, you got to all of a sudden consider them. All I know is the Knicks are going to have to build on their roster. Because obviously this roster was good, but it wasn't good enough. So they're going to have to build on their roster. Julius Randle is a big question this offseason. And that's another thing, too. I think really what depends on what the Knicks do with Julius Randle is what Julius Randle does. Is Julius Randle going to be pushy and go out there and say, give me the money now? Or is he going to be kind of, you know what? Let's see how it plays out. I would love to get more guys over here. That we'll find out what Julius Randle is. We'll find out who he is. Is he that type of guy to hate waiting for a contract and want a contract now? Or is he a type of guy that would just rather win now, maybe hold off his contract extension and rather bring in some of these other big name guys? We'll find that out about Julius Randle. Now, if you're going to ask me whether I think they should extend Randle or not, I'm a big believer in one-year wonders. Now, before you say anything, if you're going to add a comment about something I just said, hear me out. Hear me out, okay? I'm not saying Julius Randle is going to be a one-year wonder. But this is a guy who has had a solid career. A couple good seasons here and there. This season, he was really good. You got to see if he keeps that up. I don't know if you pay him all this money, possibly avoid from going out and getting a superstar, and then, him not doing well. He also didn't have a good playoffs. I would rather see 2 good years out of him and then give him the big money. And maybe next season, he has a better playoff and he proves to you. Now, let's just say he had a very good regular season and they won this playoff series and he was dominant. I would go ahead and say, you know what, give him the money. But he didn't have a good playoff series, and that concerns me a little bit. That's kind of lasting impact too. I would not say give him an extension just yet. I mean, like I said, if you give it to him, I'm not going to disagree. But in my personal opinion, I might hold off, see what's out there, see who's out there, see what you might, see what players you might be able to get your hands on, and then focus on Randle. Because I think your job now is to make the team better, and then you can focus on Julius Randle. And like I said, you'll find out who Julius Randle is. Is he the guy that's pushy for a new deal, or is he going to wait and would rather have guys build around him and try, get better? That's a big question. Now, if the Knicks go out and trade for a superstar, Julius Randle is going to go from the best player on the team probably to maybe the second best. If Julius Randle isn't if they don't go out there, like on a super team, Julius Randle is probably a third option. Like if you were to put him on the Nets right now, he's a third option. If you were to put him on the Lakers, he's a third option. If you put him on the Suns, he's a third option. He's a third option. Those aren't super teams. But if you have 2 stars, he's probably a third option. And are you going to want to pay a third option that much money? I think the Knicks got to wait on Julius Randle. If you sign him this offseason, you got to make it after free agency, after the trades. I wouldn't go ahead and sign him first and all of a sudden realize, oh crap, we gave this guy all the money and now we can't go out and get a big name free agent or trade for a big name player. And are the Knicks going to want to do that? Are they going to want to go out and get a big name player and pay high for a guy? They got the money to do it. The question is will they and do they want to? But definitely some questions. And they're not bad questions. Because for once, the New York Knicks don't have the question of, what are we going to do a head coach? Because every year it seems like the Knicks got to get a new coach. So they finally got the coach down. Thibodeau with an excellent first year head coach. Randle with a great season. And obviously, he won a most improved player. It ended in a bad way. You end with a bad taste in your mouth, losing 3 games and losing them by a lot in a row. Obviously, they lost 4 games in the series, but you lost Game 3, Game 4, and obviously last night, Game 5, terribly. You got crushed in all those games. So, this season, all the good that happened, the good outweighed the bad this season by a lot. There's a whole lot more good this season than bad for the Knicks, but they do leave with a little bad taste in their mouth. And you got to hope that, you look at a season as a whole, and it was a very successful year for the New York Knicks. And now this is really where the interesting stuff comes in, is will the Knicks actually finally get a big name free agent to come in here and play for the Knicks? Will the Knicks finally get a big name superstar and come in? And do they want to do that? Like I said, we'll find that all out. So that's what I got for the New York Knicks, as they obviously got eliminated. And hopefully we'll get it all going. Alrighty, so this is funny. So Julius Randle, an excellent year. I'm not denying that. But Julius Randle is now a 2-time MIP, which MIP stands for Most Improved Player, and it says this: 2020-2021, Most Improved Player. 2020-2021, missing in playoffs. He struggled in the playoffs, I'm going to admit that. But like I said, we got to see how everything goes. Alrighty, so let's get into the New York sports update here. Aaron Boone got ejected. Wow. So, obviously, I was watching the Yankees game, and I did this midway here. But let's get into the NBA yesterday. Mavericks won yesterday 105-100, so they moved to 3-2 in the series. Jazz won against the Grizzlies, so they win that series in 5 games. Obviously, like I mentioned, Knicks lost, Hawks won that series, and the Sixers also beat the Wizards in 5 games. And today we got the Trailblazers, Nuggets. Give me the Nuggets. Give me the Nuggets to win. I think they will win that series. And then we got the Lakers, Suns. Give me the Suns. Suns. Give me the Suns. As for yesterday in the NHL, Avalanche won in overtime. They lead the series 2-0, and the Canadiens beat the Jets in Game 1, so they move up 1-0 in the series. There's that big hit yesterday. That's been a topic of discussion around the league with that big hit yesterday. Was that a dirty hit? Should he face suspension? I believe the max could be up to 5 games. He's having a meeting today on whether or not that was intentional stuff. And, watching it, it definitely looks intentional, but the guy has no history. So, and he was also going full speed, but, he did hit him up in the head of the guy who was bending down. It's an interesting play. It's not like he was just charging right at him, because I do believe he was going down there because it was an empty net. He got up behind the net. He tried to go, he tried to wrap around it, and, he was there. But it's one of those, it's one of those tough situations, because it's like the guy was kind of just, he was doing his job, but it just didn't end well. And it might be one of those things where it turns into a suspension. All right, so as for today, we got the Islanders-Bruins. Islanders series tied at 1-1. Islanders are home. Give me the Isles. Give me the Islanders. They are home. I think they will win. And then we got the Lightning Hurricanes. Give me the Lightning. Lightning's been dominating all series. I don't see why they wouldn't otherwise. As for the MLB, yesterday the A's won, Mariners won, A's won, Mariners won. A's beat the Mariners yesterday. So A's won, Dodgers won, Rockies won, Astros won, Blue Jays won, Nationals won, Orioles won, and the Cubs won. Mets also won yesterday 7-6. They moved to 27-21 on the season. Francisco Lindor had 3 hits. That's pretty crazy for him. Yankees won yesterday 4-3. We moved to 31-25 on the season. So a solid win for us yesterday, and today's not going very well here. But as for the games on today, we got the Red Sox, Astros, the Cheaters. Give me the Sox, Red Sox. They're winning right now, so I just won't pick that for that game. And we got the Rockies, Rangers. Give me the Rangers. Braves also won today 5-1. All right. Pirates, Marlins. Give me the Marlins. Brewers, Diamondbacks, I'll give Brewers the win. White Sox, Tigers, give me the White Sox the win. Royals, Twins, give Royals the win. Cardinals, Reds, give Cardinals the win. Angels, Mariners, give Angels the win. Giants, Cubs, give Giants the win. And the Mets also play today. Mets come in this game 27-21. Padres come in this game 34-23. This game comes on today at 10:10 p.m. Eastern Time on Bally Sports San Diego, or you could also find this game on SNY. Taijuan Walker's on the mound for the Mets. Yu Darvish is on the mound for the Padres. The over-under is 6.5 for this game. Give me the Padres. They're one of the better teams in the league. Give me the Padres. And the Yankees played today as well. This game is finishing up. Rays were not winning 9-2 right now, so not going pretty well there. But the focus now is obviously on the Red Sox. If you're the Yankees right now, focus on the Red Sox. And not only is that a big-time rivalry series, however the two teams are doing, but it is a big series in terms of, division-wise. And it's your first time playing them this season. It's a real big opportunity. All right, so as for today in fantasy baseball, I'm currently winning 160 to 124. And today I've got going Yerman Mercedes, Jake Cronenworth, Whit Merrifield, Austin Riley, Josh Rojas, Carlos Correa, Alex Bregman. Correa's day off, though. Bregman I got going. Christian Yelich, Austin Meadows, Dylan Carlson, Manuel Margot, Aviso Garcia, and Yadier Molina. And I Garrett Cole on the mound. He struggled a little bit today there. But, yeah. And Yerman Mercedes has been struggling a little bit, so hopefully he gets going again. He was raking at the beginning of the season, and now all of a sudden is struggling a little bit. I thought it was going to continue. It continued, and now he's just hitting a little bit of a rough patch. I mean, it's so hard. It's so hard to hit It's so hard to hit up in the 360s in the entire season. We very rarely see it happen. Look at all these papers here. All these papers. What is all this? What was this? Oh, this was my MLB Power Rankings. The Nationals, Twins, A's, White Sox, Blue Jays, Mets, Braves, Padres, Yankees, Dodgers. That's not looking very good right now. Twins stink. Nationals aren't good. Nationals not having a great start. Other than that, though, it's accurate. Now, the Yankees are not number 3 or 2. Braves are not number 4 right now. Mets are not number 5. Yeah, this is not very good. In terms of... not very good. So far, it's not going very well. And this was fantasy. Just reading through all my different notes here. This was for This is some fantasy stuff to touch upon. We had the top 20 players: Ronald Acuna, Mookie Betts, Tatis Jr., Soto, Trout. That was for fantasy. Now Trout should have been number 1 on that list. Trey Turner, Jose Ramirez, Cole, Yelich, Story, Bieber, Freeman, Bellinger, Bauer, Lindor, Machado, Harper, Rendon, LeMahieu. Now Rendon is Bellinger has been injured most of the season. It's funny when you look at these lists and these notes. This was for fantasy baseball draft. It's funny when you look at all the notes and you realize guys that end up not having great seasons. Because it's the truth. I mean, at the beginning of the season, you could be projected to be so good and then struggle a lot. I mean, Cole's number 9, I would say he's higher than that. And then just some more notes here. I had the NHL playoffs right now. Actually, let's look at how I'm doing, successful-wise. So in the NBA playoffs right now, I'm actually doing fairly well in the NBA playoffs right now for my bracket. You got, let's see here. You got Jazz moved on first round. I did get that right. Clippers, right now, that's up in the air. That's not looking very good. I got the Jazz right. Nuggets are still rolling. Suns are still going. 76ers, I got that right. Knicks, I got that wrong. Bucks, I got that wrong. But I got the Nets right. So, some of the series aren't finished yet, and then we'll really be able to tell. And then as for Stanley Cup, definitely doing better here. You got Maple Leafs. Didn't get that right. Did not get the Jets right. I have messed up the North Division a lot. But then you got, I did get the Hurricanes right. I got the Lightning right. I got the Islanders right. I did not get Washington right, but then I got the Avalanche and the Golden Knights right. And right now, I'm getting the Avalanche right. And the Islanders right now are in a close series. So I guess I'm batting 500. Something like that. The NBA playoffs still rolling. You got to see how that plays out. Brackets are hard, man. Brackets are not easy, though. They're not easy. Because they're just not. They've never been easy. Probably never will be easy. On here, I never even put in the Grizzlies. I had the Jazz sweeping the Grizzlies, actually. But Donovan Mitchell missed the first game, so they didn't sweep them. And then, and I still got my March Madness bracket over there. So, just some spare notes. But, I know Jazz play now we'll play the winner of that Clippers series, which right now is still up in the air. Who will win that series? That is still very well up in the air. And we'll see who ends up winning out that series. If I had to choose, my personal pick would probably right now be the Mavericks, because just the way they're playing. Although on paper I have the Clippers, but things tend to change throughout the series. But anyway, that's what I got for the podcast here today. It was another good podcast, another good one in the books. And tomorrow's Friday, so we'll wrap up podcast for the week tomorrow. And head into the weekend with a lot of sports on. So, with all that being said, that will do it for the podcast here today. I will see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.